One thing that's important to understand about LogRhythm is that LogRhythm actually has three, let's say, tiers of data. Because we're an integrated log management platform, that first tier is log data. Every single log that we collect across your network, across your enterprise. The second tier of data is the event tier. And those events can be logs of interest, or they can also be logs that represent a correlation or a pattern, as detected by what we call our advanced intelligence engine. And then the top tier are alarms. And an alarm is an event where some action might be required, where maybe that's a notification or possibly a smart remediation action. The personal dashboard is your real-time view into those top two tiers, the event tier and the alarm tier. And let's dig into it a little bit. And I'm just going to kind of walk through what we call a layout for the personal dashboard to give you a flavor of how we actually present the data within LogRhythm. In the upper left corner, you see log and events by type, that pie chart. Every log and therefore every event within LogRhythm is classified into one of these high-level classification types. And those are either security, audit, or operations. I think the key point here is that every single log will be grouped in one of these buckets, regardless of where it came from. We go then a level deeper into specific classifications by type. And if we look at the lower left corner of the screen, I have security events by classification. And here I have more specific classifications that provide a organization or grouping of log data in more business or compliance language. So I have all logs and events that pertain to compromise activity, attacks, denial of service, malware, suspicious reconnaissance, misuse activity, etc. Within the audit category, I have logs and events that pertain to startup and shutdown activity, configuration activity, policy activity, account management activity, accounts being created, modified, deleted, accesses being granted or revoked, authentication success, authentication failure, etc. And then within operations, we have classifications for logs and events based upon their criticality. I have critical condition logs and events, errors, warnings, information, network allowed denying traffic. And this provides us a really nice organization of data, because let's look at this critical category, for example. Every single device within the enterprise that's sending LogRhythm data, if a critical condition has been identified, it shows up right here. And as with any part of our dashboard, I can double click on that and immediately drill down into that activity. And now I've drilled down into all the critical activity across my enterprise. And what we're looking at here is a tool called Investigator. I'm not going to get into all the details of this, because I'm going to come back to this. But the point is, I've just drilled down, and if I look at the top center here, I can see all the specific specific hosts that were impacted by critical conditions. And if I go to the Log Viewer tab, I can get to the raw log message in a matter of seconds. This is one of our key strengths and hallmarks. One thing our customers really love is the ability to go from that high-level information, that classification of critical conditions, down to all the hosts where I saw those critical conditions, then down to the raw log for the exact critical condition, or whatever that log might be. But let's go back to personal dashboard, because we're not done yet. Some other information that we provide around every log. If I go now up into the middle column on the top, I see country of origin top 10. So here, for all of my events, I can see the top 10 countries events originated from. I have a tab next to that, which is entity of origin, and that is the entities the events originated from. In LogRhythm speak, an entity is often a physical location. When you deploy LogRhythm, you would probably define your physical sites, maybe business units. Those would be entities. And the nice thing with entities is that you can actually see events in the context of an entity. And did I see an event originate maybe in a New York data center and impact a London data center, for example? The next tab over is the network of origin. Along with defining your entities, kind of your physical locations where you may have LogRhythm deployed, you can also define known networks, and you can even assign risk characteristics to those networks. In here, I can see where the network an event originated from. So for example, maybe I saw an event originated in a DMZ of my New York data center and impact the DMZ of my London data center. Let's now go to the far upper right, and here I'm looking at the country that was impacted by the event. So here I see the countries that are actually impacted by event activity. With the United States being the lion's share of that, with 68% of being affected by 68% of the events. In the middle, I have the entity that was impacted. So maybe that physical location that was impacted, with my New York headquarters being the most highly impacted entity or location, where I have LogRhythm deployed and monitoring my network. And then I have the network that was impacted as well. In this case, my highly impacted network was a network in the United Kingdom called ServerNet. That's the network where I must have most of my servers organized. Let's now go down to the bottom middle column, and I can see my origin host top 10. And here I see the top 10 origin hosts involved in event activity. Tab over that, I see the top 10 origin logins, the top 10 users involved in event-based activity. In the bottom right, I see impacted hosts, the hosts that are actually affected by the activity. If I'm thinking of this in a security context, that'd be the host that was actually attacked. And then I see the impacted application. And again, if that's in a security context, this would be the application that was attacked. But I think this should give you an idea of some of the information that we provide around a log message, and then how you can present this information in a dashboard to get a high-level view of events based upon the properties of the logs and the events that we are collecting. Another key characteristic, which I've already shown you once, for this dashboard is drill down. So let's go back up here to the middle top and look at origin country. And I see that I've got some activity from China. Let's double click on that. And when I do that, I've now drilled into all events that originated from China. Now I'm back in the investigator tool where I can now analyze the activity that came from China. And I see in the upper top left corner, I see a number of user accounts. Now right away I would find this concerning because I've got log messages that contain user accounts originating from China. Why is that? Well, let's find out. And to find out, I would drill down again. I would select Kendrick McAfee, double click on that value, and now I've drilled down into just the event activity from China for that user. And if I go down below into my common event top 10, I can see that actually it was a single type of log message that was deserved. An FTP 550 command not acceptable. So it looks like there was an attempt to execute an FTP command under that user account, unsuccessful, fortunately. Now I'm going to drill back. One of the nice things about this investigator tool is you can drill down into data, and then you can drill back and drill down and drill back. So you can keep diving into the data at deeper levels, but then also back yourself up as well. Let's go look at the second user on that list. Again, the same FTP 550, not available. Let's look at the third user on that list. Same command again. Fourth user on that list. Same command again. So it looks like what we've got here is maybe somehow a list of my user accounts got into the wrong hands. Now that certainly is concerning. How did that happen? At this point, I probably would put China certainly on a blacklist for future monitoring. I might actually go and look at some of the origin hosts up here in the next to the origin login list, and maybe add those to a blacklist. And fortunately, that's very easy, and I'll show you that in a little bit later. So returning to the theme of getting the right information to the right person the right way, let's actually walk through the process of creating a custom layout. So to do that, I would go to the Layouts menu and choose Reset Layout. What this will do is bring up my kind of default system layout. It also will automatically show on the left side the tool selector. The tool selector lists all those tools available to you in creating a layout ideally suited to your analysis needs. But before we get going on actually creating this, let's save it real quick. And I'm going to go up here and say Save Layout As. Call this my new, let's say we'll call this New Executive Dashboard. All right, so now I've got it saved. So now I can begin to actually define the dashboard. In the tool selector, you can toggle tools on and off. And so anything that's actually in bold is on and visible over here on the right. What I'm going to do is just go turn everything off. Just start with a clean slate. All right, so now I've got a clean slate. What I'm going to start with, a TopX analysis tool. So I'm going to go and check one of these that says unconfigured TopX. That means it's in a unconfigured state. And I'm going to configure it. To do so, I'd right-click, and that brings up a context menu where I can now choose my TopX field. The TopX field is essentially just a property of the log that you actually want to create a TopX list of. And what I want to create a TopX list of is, let's say origin cities. Cities that are actually, the origination of activity. Now, I've chosen city as the field. You can see that, now this TopX is populated with, my top 10 cities. But I have some other flexibility as well. I can do a TopX by count, by bytes, by packets. I can even do a bottom-X by count, by bytes, and by packets. I'll leave it at TopX by count. The X, stands for the number. Do I want, top 3, top 5, top 7, top 10, etc. Flexibility there as well. You can also show others, hide others, and you have a display mode of chart and list, chart only, or just list. I'm going to choose chart for this TopX. And you can also, view it in 3D, or in 2D based upon your preference. Let's now add a couple other TopXs. I'm going to add a second TopX, and this one I am going to choose the city that was impacted. And I'm going to put that into chart mode. Now I want these both side by side, so I'm going to take that city impacted and I'm going to drag it to the right and I'm going to drop it over. Now I've got both of these side by side. All right, now I'm going to grab another TopX, a third TopX. I'm going to turn on a fourth TopX as well and go configure these. And I'm going to make these the origin host, the host from actually the host that actually caused the activity, the attacker in a security context. I'm going to make that that one I'll leave as a list. I'm going to go to my other unconfigured TopX, and then I'm going to make the impacted host or the target. That I'll make a list. And I'm going to rearrange these because I want my my origin hosts and impacted hosts underneath the other TopXs. So I'm going to drag that one over there. And then I also want to see my events by time. So I'm going to go grab a time analysis widget. I want to look at logs and events by time and by direction. So I turn that one on, that shows up. And I'm going to also drag that one down to the bottom here. Drop it into place. do a little resizing. Obviously, one thing you will come to learn about LogRhythm if you're a customer or if you give it a test run is that the higher screen resolution, the more flexibility you have, and the better and better dashboards you can create. I'm working here with some limited real estate, so I can't do as much as I would like to, but should give you an idea. Now I've got all the tools that I care to show, and I'm going to hide the tool selector, and I can see that I've got my city of origin top 10 up top, my city impacted up to the right, below that the origin host top 10, and below that the impacted host top 10, below that my events and alarms for previous 6 hours. And on here, I can either show my alarms, hide my alarms, and I can also put that into 3D mode, which I like 3D, looks kind of cool. So now that I have my dashboard exactly as I want it, I go back up to the layouts menu, hit save layout. And now that layout is saved with these tools, their configuration, exactly as I specified. And I can go to a different layout, back to my threat monitoring dashboard, see that applied, and then return to the layout I just created, my new executive dashboard. And that demonstrates just how easy it is to create a dashboard that is targeted to deliver the information to you exactly as you want it. One of the nice things about LogRhythm is that it really is accessible from anywhere. Our console and the personal dashboard can be accessed via an iPad, for example, which I've got loaded up here. LogRhythm includes very sophisticated knowledge management capabilities. These capabilities are designed to embed expertise in the product. LogRhythm has a team of security and compliance experts which form our LogRhythm Labs organization. This team's mission, their objective, is to translate their experience, their knowledge, and their research into knowledge module applications that our customers can apply to meet different requirements and needs. For example, meeting compliance requirements, or performing user activity monitoring, effectively and efficiently, or monitoring maybe target hosts within their environment. Let's go look at how we actually deliver that knowledge to our customers. So I'm going to open up the Knowledge Base Manager. The Knowledge Base Manager provides our customers a list of optional modules that they can deploy within their deployment. And let's look at a couple of these modules. Obviously, a lot of the modules are oriented around compliance requirements. So I've got a module for FSMA, for GLBA, for GPG 13, which is a requirement found in the UK. HIPAA, NERC CIP, PCI DSS, SOX COSO, etc. Then we have other modules as well. Modules that contain collections of reports to meet different requirements, different needs. Modules that might help a customer perform user monitoring, for example. But let's go look at one of these modules. I'm going to choose the Compliance PCI DSS module. When you highlight a module up top, the objects in that module are displayed down below. And if we look at the object type column here, I can see that I've got a variety of objects. I've got alarm rules, I've got investigations, I've got reports, and I've got a report package. Key point here is that within LogRhythm, a knowledge module is more than just reports. We provide a complete set of functionality that is designed to assist our customers meet some need. If it's compliance, then we provide the right reports, the right out-of-the-box searches, the right alerts that they can turn on to then automate the detection of specific types of compliance violations, for example. When a user enables one of these modules, all of this knowledge, all this capability, from within our LogRhythm Labs team is then brought directly into their deployment. and they can then configure this knowledge module very easy via another feature which we call lists. And let's talk more about that. So I'm going to close this down, and I'm going to open up List Manager. So List Manager allows you to create a list of really anything. It can be a list of of IP addresses, a list of host names, a list of users, a list of processes. Maybe it's a white list of expected processes on hard and Windows servers or Linux servers. It could be a list of locations to which you expect to see maybe outbound network communications to, or maybe a list of locations from which you expect to see remote authentication attempts. It can be a list of maybe sensitive keywords that you want to monitor for in the subject line of emails. The point being that you can create a list containing values that you are looking for or not looking for within the content of a log message, and then put that list to work for you in a variety of ways. Because lists can be referenced by searches, they can be referenced by reports, they can be referenced by AI engine rules, your correlation rules, pattern recognition rules. Essentially, wherever you're doing any filtering, wherever you're looking for logs of certain criteria, you can use a list instead. Why is that powerful? Well, let's take the list for maybe a PCI package. So I'm going to come up top here, and I'm going to type in PCI. So here, 4 lists show up. PCI access control systems, card holder data storage systems, network monitoring and testing, and network security devices. So in support of our PCI knowledge module, we provided 4 different lists. Now, as a user of LogRhythm, all you have to do to configure our PCI compliance module to work correctly in your environment is to configure these lists with the right types of systems and then maintain them over time. And as long as you do that, then your searches for PCI compliance, your reports for PCI compliance, your alerts for PCI compliance are all specifically and exactly tuned to your environment. And this list-based approach makes the ongoing maintenance of this very low and very easy. And that's the point. Keeping kind of the compliance burden as low as possible, but also helping to assure compliance through ease of configuration. Because if a solution's hard to configure, chances are you might not actually be in compliance because you can make mistakes. And so we've done as much as we can to make configuration of our compliance modules very easy with a low cost of ongoing ownership. Some other capabilities of lists are on the security side. So let's say as a security analyst, I want to monitor for a couple of things. I've taken the approach of protecting the target. I'm concerned that if somebody comes after us, they're likely going to get in. Very likely through the human operator, social engineering, spear phishing, for example. If they do, how am I going to detect them? In support of that, I've created a number of lists. And again, I'm going to go to the top here. I'm going to filter on target. The lists I've created are target hosts. For after a risk assessment, I've identified these hosts as containing the most critical and sensitive information, and assets within my organization. If somebody were to come after me or come after my network for something of value, it very likely would reside on one of these servers or one of these hosts. I've also created a list of target host authorized ingress and egress locations. Now, these are locations in which I expect to see ingress and egress traffic to and from that list of target hosts. In this case, the UK and the US. I've also created a list of authorized ingress-egress networks. These are the internal networks that I've defined within LogRhythm, where again, I expect to see network communications to and from those hosts. And then lastly, I've created a list of target host authorized user accounts. These are the users that are actually authorized to access those systems for business purposes. Of course, they also need to be concerned about privileged users within the network as well, because they have the keys of the kingdom. But these are the end users who can access those systems. So I've created a list of them as well. Now these 4 lists, will be used to help me, monitor and defend my environment, from threats that might target either the hosts themselves or the user accounts that can access those hosts. And we'll be referring back to these lists as we talk about more parts of the LogRhythm platform. LogRhythm includes a very powerful search function to support more ad hoc querying when I want to go out and investigate and see what's actually happening, maybe in support of an incident, or maybe just as part of a protective monitoring program. The investigator tool provides me with very deep and broad searching capabilities. And let's walk through this process. So when I click on the Investigate button, the Investigator wizard opens. And this will walk me through the process of creating a brand new investigation, or I can simply double-click and run a saved investigation. In this case, let's create a new investigation. And let's say what I want to search for here is I want to review user activity against maybe those hosts I've identified as targets based upon a previous risk assessment. I'm going to configure new. The first step is to choose my search type. I can do an event search against the event layer. I can do a log manager search, which would be against one or more log managers. This is more of a forensic search. Or I can do a LogMart search. LogMart is a proprietary data warehouse of log metadata that allows you to do long-term trending. For example, show me all activity from China for the past year, or all authentication activity for this user for the past year. And very powerful trending is what LogMart provides. But I'm going to do a log manager search because I want to be able to get down to the raw log, and that's generally the type of search most of our users do. Next, I can choose a date range. I can it can be in the last minutes, hours, days, or month. In this case, let's just look in the last day. And I can also do a date before, after, between as well. The next step would be to choose the log sources to query. I can query all possible log sources. I can select from a list of log sources that I've created or populated. And then I can also just do ad hoc selection as well. I guess, keep in mind a log source in LogRhythm is a unique source of log data from a host. An example of a log source would be the security event log from a Windows server, or a syslog file from a Linux host, for example. I'm going to choose all log sources so that no matter where the log originated, and no matter where it was logged, I will receive it. It will be returned to my search results if it meets my criteria. And next, I'm going to define my criteria. So what I'm looking for is activity against my target hosts. And specifically, I want to look for authentications, and I want to look for access activity. So I'm going to go in and use my classification criteria and choose those 4 classifications. I'm next going to search for the users that I want to review activity. And here I'm going to add some lists that I created previously. I'm going to add my target host authorized user accounts and my privileged user accounts list. And then lastly, I am going to add host criteria. And here I'm going to add my target hosts list. And so now I've created a search that's looking for logs classified as authentication failure success, where the origin login is either on my privileged user accounts list or my target host authorized user accounts list, and the impacted host is a target host. So I've narrowed my search down to looking for just activity against my target host for accounts authorized to access those hosts, where I'm looking for login activity and access activity. And we'll click Next here. And then here are some settings to specify. These are populated by default, not much to do here usually. One thing I do have down below, though, is a layout to choose from. We talked about layouts with the personal dashboard. Well, I have that exact same capability with Investigator, the ability to align the data with how I analyze it, the view I use to actually look at that data. And in this case, I'm going to choose my user activity analysis view, a view ideally suited for analyzing user activity. Let's hit next. I could save this, call this target host user activity review. Save it, launch it, and now this search is kicked off and it's going to go find all activity against my target hosts for users that are authorized to access that host. So results have come back, and I can see that I have a number of users that have activity against those hosts. I can see the countries of origin are the US and the UK, as well as the impacted countries. This is normal. This is what I would expect. These are the two countries from which I would expect to see activity and communications. I can look at my object top 10 and see the actual objects that have been accessed on those systems. And I can also see the common events, the actual type of logs on those systems that have been created. And then to the, in the bottom right, I can see the logs by time. It's kind of a nice visual here. I can see logs by day of week, time of day, and look for patterns. And it looks like the activity here is pretty steady based upon time of day and day of week. So that's a good example of how I would leverage a list to create a highly targeted search, and then to present the search results in a view ideally suited to analyze user activity. And that's that's a critical part of the analysis benefit of LogRhythm. That ability to align the data you're looking at with the layout or the view you use to actually analyze that information. Unfortunately, in first-gen solutions, what's often the case is you have a single way to look at all data, and that means of analyzing the data is not going to be ideally suited for the task at hand in most cases. With LogRhythm, those two are directly aligned, and that makes your analysis efforts much more effective, much more accurate, and the overall experience just much better in terms of being able to find what you're looking for quickly and accurately. Let's look at another example of search combined with the targeted information delivery I've been speaking about. I'm going to click Investigate again, and here I have another saved search called NetFlow Analysis. One thing LogRhythm does is we collect NetFlow data. NetFlow is actually a very rich source of information about what's occurring on your network, and can be very interesting to analyze, and can tell you things about your network that you never knew before. So I'm going to run this search, and again, when I get to the last step of the wizard, I can choose a layout. In this case, I'm going to choose the network traffic view layout, again to align the data optimally with how I'm going to look at it. Let's run through another example of search. In this situation, I want to do a little bit of a broader search, and I want to look for really just general activity around my target hosts, to see if I see something that might look suspicious. And as an analyst, I might do this once a day. I might run this search once a day just to generally review what I'm seeing on and around my target hosts. So again, I'm going to choose all log sources. But in this case, I'm going to again choose classifications. And I'm going to add some classifications. Let's look for account activity through access activity, and we're going to look for some security activity as well. Let's look for compromise through vulnerability. And I'm going to add on to that Actually, I'm going to add on to that host where's the origin or impact is. In this case, I'm going to look for activity where one of my target hosts was either the origin of the activity or impacted by the activity. And so what I've got here is a search looking for any logs classified as any of these values. Access failure, account created, attack, compromise, DOS, vulnerability, and the host is one of my target hosts. Where that host could either be again the origin host or the impacted host. And again, I can align the search results with a layout so that the information is targeted for the right delivery, the right purpose. And here I'm going to use my threat analysis view, which is more of a general view I've created to just generally analyze data with more of a context towards threat analysis. And we'll hit next. And here I'm going to just call this my target host activity review search. So my results have come back, and I can see that there's been a lot of activity around my target hosts. I can see the users that have accessed those hosts in one way or the other. The origin hosts that have interacted with my target hosts. Hosts that are affected by target hosts, applications affected across my target hosts, as well as other information. And let's look at the country activity. I see country of origin, US, UK. Let's go look at country impacted, US, UK. So that is not suspicious. That's what I would expect. Let's go look at my common event top 10, see if we see anything there. I do have some command failed. I can double click on that. And let's go to log viewer. We can actually see the raw log then and see exactly what was trying to, what it failed. And here we've got a user failed to execute update command on DBO customer. So, this particular user, Marlon Lisi, was trying to update the customers table, but that failed due to access restrictions. So that's a little bit suspicious. So in this case, what I might want to do is actually correlate activity for that user to see what else has that user done. And here's where I would use a feature we call one-click correlation. So down here I have what's called our quick search toolbar, and I can put some criteria in here, say 24 hours. And I have a quick filter down here where I can specify a filter of threatening. And I'm going to turn an option on here to open the investigation wizard. So if I want to search for other activity for that user, I could right-click on this log and say correlate, and I could correlate on the origin login field, that user. And that opens up a new investigator wizard search. But this search has been pre-prepared for me. Optionally, I can just launch the search directly, but I've actually chosen to open the wizard so you can see what's happening here behind the scenes. And so what this has done is automatically created a filter for this search of origin login is Marlin, and the classification is one of these threatening classifications. And now I can run this. Now I'm doing another search looking for just activity for this one user, and that came back, Marlin. And now I can see everything else this user has done. And if I go to my common event top 10, I can see that some phishing content's been observed, malicious sites content observed, and proxy avoidance content observed. At this point, I think it's time for probably Marlin to sit down with myself, maybe someone from HR, because we likely have an issue here. I think this provides an example of the power of the correlation feature and the drill down. I'm able to get the results back from a search, drill into some activity, find something suspicious very quickly, then do a correlative search across all other devices within the deployment and get all the activity for a specific user or specific host or specific application. And this really demonstrates the power of search within LogRhythm. That ability to get down to what you're looking for very quickly, get to the raw log if necessary, but then launch a new search from there to get additional forensic visibility and context for whatever it is you're analyzing and looking at. Another unique feature of LogRhythm is Tail. Tail provides a real-time feed of log data from one or more logging devices in real time, with the ability to define fine-grained criteria for what you actually want to see. So it's a really nice and powerful, lightweight utility for just seeing log data in real time. And let's kind of call back to that previous example where we saw that suspicious user. Let's say what I want to do is actually start a tail and have a real-time feed of all that user's activity in front of me. So I would open Tail and begin to walk through it. I'm going to choose all log sources because I want to see all activity. And I'm going to define a criteria of origin login is that user Marlin. Now I'm going to add Marlin, hit OK. Next, and run that tail. And now I've got a real-time feed of all activity for that user account. On the top of the tail view, I have what's called our aggregate log and event list. These are all the unique events that have been observed. A unique event is one where all the properties of the log are identical. And I see the first time I saw that log and the last time I saw that unique log, and the number of times I've seen that unique log. And I can scroll to the right, and I can see I've got some log off activity, some login, network connection established, some email delivery, messages. I can even group activity by location. I can see where activity for Marlin is occurring by location. And here I see something in Argentina. Another potentially unauthorized content log. But the point here is that very quickly, very easily, I get a real-time view of all activity for this specific user, or it could be a host, or it could be a combination of hosts. But really, Tail gives you the ability to kind of tap into that log feed in real time immediately and see what's happening as it's happening. If all log data was reviewed on a daily basis, it's hard to imagine how a breach would ever go undiscovered. But the reality is, most enterprises generate millions, sometimes billions of log messages a day, and it's not realistic to apply manual analysis on top of that data set. Therefore, the need to automate that analysis is critical, and really never more critical than it has been today, given the fast evolving threat landscape. LogRhythm has a very powerful weapon to serve this need. We have a technology called the Advanced Intelligence Engine, or AI engine. The AI engine can continuously, tirelessly look across all of your log data in real time, looking for correlated patterns, looking for patterns in general, and also looking for behavioral deviations. All of which might indicate high-risk events, breaches, intrusions, insider threats, or fraud. And you can almost think of the AI engine as your team of 24/7 analysts constantly pouring across all the logs generated within your environment, looking for anything that might be suspicious, and when seen, raising it to your attention so that you can then evaluate further. Let's jump in and take a look at AI engine and how we actually put this technology to use for you. So I've now opened up the AI engine rule manager. The rule manager allows you to create rules that will be processed by the AI engine. And these rules can describe a pattern you're looking for, a correlation, or expected behavior or unexpected behavior. And so that when seen, an event can be generated, an alarm can be raised, and even a smart remediation action can be initiated. Let's jump in and create a new rule to kind of give you an idea of how these correlations, patterns, and behaviors are described. So I've now opened up the AI Engine Rule Wizard. On the left side, you see rule blocks. And here I've got my log rule blocks, log observed and log not observed. I also have threshold observed rule blocks, a threshold being observed or not observed. And I also have unique values rule blocks, unique values being observed, not observed. Each of these rule blocks by itself provides very powerful analysis capabilities where I can describe something I'm looking for within the log data. And when seen, tell me about it. I can also combine rule blocks together as well to form even larger patterns. Let's create an example rule block. I'm going to drag my log observed rule block over. And when I do that, it prompts me to define that rule block. Defining criteria for the logs that I'm looking for. And you'll notice this looks very similar to other interfaces you've seen in terms of defining criteria. So in this case, what I want to look for is a worm propagation. I'm going to look for an attack against a host inside my network where then that host begins to attack other hosts. And to do that, I'd create criteria where I'm looking for logs classified as, I'm going to say compromise or attack or malware. And I'm going to put a direction on here of external. So it's an external attack. And I'm going to group by the origin host and the impacted host, which means it'll consider logs matching the criteria specified unique if the origin host and the impacted host are unique. And now I'll save that. Now I'm going to drag a second rule block over, and that rule block is going to be a unique values rule block. And I'll drag this rule block over, and here I again describe criteria. And in this case, the criteria is going to be similar. It's going to be classification criteria. I'm going to look for compromise, attack. I'll look for DOS in this case, malware, suspicious, and even reconnaissance. So I'm going to be a little bit broader in the types of logs I'll look for. And that's all I'm going to look for here. I'm also going to group by origin host. But for unique values, I need to choose a field where I'm going to look for unique values within. In that case, I'm going to look for unique values within impacted host. And I'm going to look for, let's say, 10 unique values. And I'm going to look for that within a period of, I'm going to say, not 24 days. I'm going to say 24 hours, well, I'm going to say 1 day, 24 hours. And I'm going to save that. Now that I have two rule blocks, I need to define some relationships. And the relationships here are that in the first rule block, the impacted host that was actually attacked is now the origin host in the second rule block. It's the attacker. And I'm going to save that. And now I've defined the correlation or the pattern I'm looking for. Let's run through this again. In rule block 1, I'm looking for logs classified as attack, compromise, or malware. The direction is external. And in rule block 2, I'm looking for logs classified as attack, compromise, DOS, malware, reconnaissance, suspicious, where rule block 2 will signal if 10 or more occurrences of impacted host are observed within 1 day. With the relationship of the impacted host in my first rule block is the origin host in the second. And so now I've defined a pattern within the log data where if I see a host attacked and then that attacked host begin attacking other hosts, this rule will fire. And I would probably call this a worm propagation. Let's look at a couple other rules. Let's look at some rules that are actually created by the LogRhythm Labs team, provided to our customers, as part of one of our knowledge modules. So here's a rule called temporary account created, used, and then deleted. So this rule is a rule that just comes out of the box, and it's designed to detect where I detect an account created in the first rule block, then a logon with that account that was just created, and then that account being subsequently deleted. All within the time frame of 1 day. Now, if I see this pattern where I see a user create an account, then that user logs on to the account they created, and then they delete that account, there's a very good chance something is not right, and that user is most likely creating an account to perform activity under that they don't want associated back to themselves. And what's the reason for that? They're probably up to no good. That's probably the reason. So that's an example of another AI engine rule. Let's look for another one. Here's a rule called concurrent authentication from multiple countries. This rule leverages our unique values rule block. What this rule looks for is it looks for successful authentications using the same login where the origin country, where there were two different origin countries within 1 day. And again, here's another pattern where if I observe this, most likely that account's been compromised. Why am I seeing, Chris.Peterson log in from Boulder, and then I'm seeing Chris.Peterson log in from Brazil within 24 hours. Yeah, it's possible I got in a plane and flew down there, but pretty unlikely. At the very least, I want to be notified of this and be able to look into it. And because if that account's compromised, especially if I'm a privileged user, that's a high-risk event, and I need to get on top of that. So that's another example of what AI Engine can do. This is also actually a really good example of why we need to correlate at the log layer. One of the deficiencies with first-gen solutions was that they would correlate at the event layer. They'd correlate against a small subset of the data within the enterprise, traditionally IDS logs. What we need to do, and what we are doing in LogRhythm, is correlating against all the data, looking for patterns or behaviors against all the data, especially non-exception-based data. Take this rule as a good example of that. What I'm modeling here are successful authentications, 2 successful logins. That happens every single day. It's not an event, it's normal. But it's not normal when I see 2 successful logins using the same account from 2 different countries. That's when that normal activity becomes a very abnormal, and why we need to be looking at the log layer, not just the event layer. Let's look at one more example. Here's a rule called external host compromised data loss. Let's look at this rule. So this is again a 2-block rule, but it's using a different rule block called our threshold observed rule block. Here in the first rule, I'm looking for logs classified as attack or compromised, direction being external, grouping by the impacted host. In the second rule block, I am looking for logs classified as network allowed denier traffic, grouping by the origin host, where I'm looking for a threshold being reached, greater than a megabyte of data. So the pattern I'm looking for here is a host was attacked by an external host. That host then transmitted more than a megabyte of data back to the attacking host. Now, if I see that pattern, there's a high probability that host was compromised and also that data is being exfiltrated. And again, this is a great example of why NetFlow data is interesting from a correlation standpoint. If I can bring NetFlow data in, or I can correlate against my egress firewall logs, my accepted logs, I can look for patterns like this. I see an attack against a host, and then I see data leaving my network from that host back to the attacker. So again, another example of why we need to be correlating against a much broader data set. So AI Engine provides great automated visibility across your environment with the ability to automatically detect very sophisticated threats, intrusions, and even fraud. In addition to detecting this activity, we go beyond that. We go to be able to remediate it automatically. LogRhythm not only has the ability to detect advanced threats via AI Engine, but we also have the ability to implement automatic defensive and corrective actions via a feature we call Smart Remediation. Remediation isn't entirely new to the world of SIEM. It's been tried in the past, but there have been challenges with how it's been implemented and approached. The key challenge is there that generally it's been binary, it's been on or off. If I want to implement a defensive action for an attack, either I do it or I don't, and that causes an issue with change management process, which then becomes a political issue, and that's really kind of the other challenge remediation has had previously. With Smart Remediation, we've addressed both those challenges via a workflow-aligned approval process. So when you implement an action for an AI Engine rule or for an alert, you can either have that action initiated immediately, instantaneously, or you can require approval prior to initiation. And that approval can actually be tiered or be aligned with a workflow. So for example, let's go back to that compromised account use case where I've seen an account compromised. I believe that's the case, but maybe I don't want to automatically disable it. I want to have that activity reviewed by a security analyst, and then I want to have somebody within the Active Directory administration team also approve disabling that account. But I want to have that action already teed up and ready to go within LogRhythm. So once it's approved, it happens instantaneously in a tested, fail-proof manner, where it won't get forgotten about, if you will. And so that's what Smart Remediation provides, the ability for both the security analyst to review the activity around that compromised account and for somebody in the AD group to also review it, or just wait for the analyst to say, yeah, this is real. And once kind of both those keys are turned, then that action gets initiated. And that's the way to make remediation actually work in the enterprise. It requires highly accurate detection, which is delivered via AI Engine, and it requires the ability to have the action work through a approval process that meets change management requirements within the organization. Let's go look at a remediation action in terms of how we would set that up. Smart Remediation is supported off of alarm rules, which are more basic alerts. They're also supported off of AI Engine rules. In this case, I am going to look at a rule, an alarm rule. And let's open this up. This is called, that's the wrong rule actually. I've got a rule here called peer-to-peer process observed on a host. And for this rule, what I'm looking for are common peer-to-peer process names. And I've got a list of these that have been provided to me from the LogRhythm Labs team. There they are. Now I'm leveraging the LogRhythm System Monitor to do process monitoring on some sensitive workstations as well as some critical servers. And if I see a peer-to-peer process running on any of these systems, I want to kill it. I want to terminate that process immediately. So to configure Smart Remediation, you do that off the Actions tab. Smart Remediation leverages a plugin-based architecture. This is really nice because our LogRhythm Labs team is able to produce plugins on a continuous basis. Where a plugin might, for example, plugins that we have are process management, the ability to kill a process, start a process, service management, kill a service, restart a service, quarantining hosts via applying local firewall settings, account management, the ability to disable a user account or remove a privilege from a user account, for example. But the point being that we provide a lot of plugins out of the box for our customers to put to use in their environments, but they can be customized, by a customer, tweaked to meet their needs, or you can write your own, build your own plugin to interface with some other system exactly as you need to in your environment. Really, it's fairly limitless in terms of what you can conceive of. If you can initiate an action based upon the data in the event, you can write a plugin to perform that action automatically. So here, I've got an action defined to kill a process when observed. In this case, I'm looking again, for peer-to-peer processes. So down below, I have parameters, and the parameters are where you define, the values that will actually be sent to the plugin. In this case, I'm going to be sending the host name, the host where I observed the peer-to-peer process. I'm also going to send the process name itself. I'm also persisting some credentials that I'm going to pass into the plugin. This is very powerful. A lot of times an action must be performed under somebody else's user account that has more permissions than the LogRhythm software does itself. You can do this. You can persist a credential and the password where the password is stored and meets FIPS 140-2 compliance requirements for encryption standards. Another nice capability you have with the Smart Remediation feature is the ability to run tests. So down below here, I can see the command that will actually be executed. Notice the password not being shown there. I can put test values in so that I can actually test this action to see if it's actually working prior to me deploying it. Now let's go ahead and do that. So here I've got a system here where I have BitTorrent installed. I'm going to launch BitTorrent. And I'm going to go back to my rule and hit the test button. Let's go back to that window, and we should see BitTorrent go away here in a second. So I've tested that action to make sure that it actually, kills the process that's specified in my test scenario. And now I have confidence that this remediation action is configured correctly. Down below, I have approvals. And I can see that right now, there is an approval process required. Howard Rourke must approve this. This is where you can actually implement that workflow-aligned approval process. Right now, all that's required is a single person to approve this. If I deleted that user, now this action will be initiated automatically, immediately, without approval being required. But let's add some approvals back. So I'm going to add back Howard Rourke, and then I'm going to add a group. And I'm going to add the group System Admins. So right now, you'll notice that both of these approvals are at level 1. Now that means that either Howard Rourke or anybody in the System Admins group can approve this and it will be initiated. If I wanted to require both Howard Rourke and somebody in System Admins to approve it, I would change this to level 2. And now I require approvals from both Howard Rourke and somebody in System Admins. I could go beyond that and add a third level. Maybe I also need a PM team. And I'm going to put them at level 3. So now I need I need Howard Rourke to approve it. Maybe he's a security analyst. Someone from System Admins and someone from the PM team to approve it. prior to that process being killed. And with this approval process, I'm pretty confident that I'm not going to actually perform that action on that system until it's been validated and approved by at least three separate people. But as I said, in this case, I'm not sure we really need any approval, so I'm going to remove all those. And we'll save that. So now I'm going to go open up my personal dashboard so we can actually monitor for that event being sane. I'm going to change my layout here to my threat monitoring view. Let's go to approvals here. And let's go back and let's now launch BitTorrent again. So I've launched it, it's running. Go back to my dashboard. And here I see that an alarm has come in, peer-to-peer process observed on host. So, as an approver of this alarm, it shows up in my dashboard, and I can choose action, right-click, so remediation action, approve, and once I've approved it, the status goes to pending because now the action is being queued up for delivery, and then once it's been completed, it'll change to success. And I go back to that other system and I can see that BitTorrent has indeed been killed. And so that's an example of the approval process in work. Let's go look at another AI engine event. Here's an event for the external account compromised, which we've shown earlier. I'm going to choose that, right-click, and I'm going to go to Action Properties. And something else that's nice about the Smart Remediation is you can actually see what's going to be initiated prior to approving it. You can see the command, and you can also see the approvals required. In this case, for this particular AI engine rule, it requires two different levels. Howard Rourke at one level, and then either Seth Goldhammer or Chris Peterson at level 2. And then once both of them approve, then it will be initiated. And I can come in here, right-click, and initiate my approval as Howard Rourke. And now that goes to pending, and now that action is waiting and pending approval from level 2. So hopefully this gives you a good idea of what Smart Remediation can do for you in terms of actively defending your network and your environment from various threats and issues, and even being used to automate response around compliance issues, and doing so in a responsible manner that aligns with your existing change management processes. Another unique capability of LogRhythm is our ability to get very deep visibility around what is actually happening on a host. We do this for a number of reasons. One reason is that it's required per a variety of compliance mandates, specifically file integrity monitoring. But the other reason is that hosts are most often what the target is. And it's most often where the data resides that a threat is after. And given that, the more visibility we can have on hosts, especially target hosts, the better chance we have of defending those hosts from these threats. Let's talk about each of these capabilities and what they can do. So I'm going to open up Deployment Manager, and I am going to open up the properties for a System Monitor agent and go to the Endpoint Monitoring tab. Here I can see the 5 different capabilities we have around host activity monitoring. It starts with really our flagship capability, which is File Integrity Monitor. I can deploy this in either standard mode or real-time mode. Standard is more the traditional way FIM has been applied, where I'm going to periodically look at files and hash them to see if that file hash has changed. Real-time mode really takes it to the next level in terms of real-time visibility and forensic depth around changes and access to files. That leverages actually a kernel driver to look for changes to files, access to files, modifications to files, either the file content or the permissions, in real time continuously with another layer of forensic information available, including some anomaly detection capabilities. So as a user, you have the option of choosing either of those modes. It really just depends on whether or not you want a kernel driver running on that system or not. File integrity monitoring is policy-based. Again, our LogRhythm Labs team researches the files that should be monitored, both for modifications and access on all the operating systems that we support. And so you can choose a policy out of the box and put that to work, or you can customize it to meet the specifics of your environment. The next capability is Data Loss Defender. This is also a policy-based feature where Data Loss Defender is designed to monitor and detect files being moved to removable media, USB drives, or your writable CDs, DVDs, etc. And this provides a audit trail of data leaving the system, via removable devices. Very important, especially when looking for exfiltration attempts or successful exfiltration. We also have a feature called Process Monitor. This enables you to monitor in real time all the processes that are running on a host. And with this, you can do things such as build a whitelist of expected processes on hardened systems, and if a new process is observed, generate an alert. So you can determine why is there a new process on this hardened host where I understand what I expect to see in terms of authorized processes. Another capability is Network Connection Monitor. This capability allows LogRhythm to monitor all connections to and from that host, as well as anything that opens up a listening socket on that system. So this provides a complete history and audit trail of anything connecting to and from that, host. Again, very deep visibility from a network layer in terms of how that host is interacting on the network. And then lastly, we have User Activity Monitor. This provides an independent audit trail of authentication activity, local logons as well as remote logons. So all of these capabilities can be put to use monitoring your most sensitive and targeted systems. And let's look at this in work actually within AI Engine. So I'm going to open up AI Engine Rule Manager, and I've created a rule in here called Target Host Anomalous Behavior, which is going to leverage the capabilities of host activity monitoring to detect abnormal behaviors against my target hosts. What I've defined are 4 different behaviors, expected behaviors, where if I see deviations, I'll be alerted. The first is I've created a condition where if a target host is the impacted host, the classification is authentication success, and the user is not on my target host authorized user accounts list, that will trip. I'll be notified. So here I'm looking to deviations of expected authentication activity, where I can use the user monitoring capability within our host activity monitoring suite. The next condition I'm looking for is traffic to and from target hosts that are where the network is not on my authorized networks list. Here I'm leveraging the network connection monitoring feature. I have another condition where I'm again looking for network traffic, but in this case I'm looking for authorized ingress locations, leveraging our geolocational capabilities combined with network connection monitor. The fourth condition I'm looking for is an unexpected process on one of my target hosts. So I'm looking for target hosts, process started, where that process is not on my whitelist of expected processes for those target hosts. And so now AI Engine is going to continuously look for deviations in any of these 4 behaviors, and if seen, notify me of it. So here's a great example of how I can tie in that deep visibility at the host with the powers of AI Engine to continuously look for unexpected abnormal behavior, which could indicate that that host is compromised, or it's just being accessed inappropriately internally, where that could also be an indication of maybe an APT, maybe somebody's been bribed, maybe they have an insider threat. The bottom line is if this host begins to deviate in its behavior, I'm going to know about it. So now let's take a look at the type of log messages that are generated from our host activity monitoring capability. So what I've got here is a saved search of host activity monitoring logs, and I'm just going to run this. And that's going to go out and find logs from the host activity monitoring features where deployed across the enterprise. So what I've got here is a variety of my top 5 logins, my top 5 origin hosts, my top 5 impacted hosts. Let's drill down into this one host. And so now I'm looking at just host activity as detected by LogRhythm on this single host. I can go to my common event top 10 and I can see that I've got some listening ports established and closed and some various connection activity. So I can see the event activity. I've also got some file monitoring activity as well. And actually I've got a file monitoring event add. Let's double click on that and see what was added. I'm going to go to log viewer and get down to the raw log, and I can see exactly what files were added. And here I've got some DLLs added to my system.wow64 directory. Now this is a production server with a very tight change control window, or that change control window, I know is on the weekend. And here I've got DLLs being added to a system directory that would make me extremely concerned. So this is a good example of where I would probably copy this data, right-click, send selected logs, and export selected logs, and I would email maybe those off to the system, maybe the director of IT or the system admin responsible for that host, and try to get an idea, what happened here. Maybe there's an emergency patch I'm not familiar with. But if there was an authorized change, well, this system has changed, and why? And if it's not authorized, then it should definitely require some additional investigation. But I think that's a good example of the visibility you get with this, with host activity monitoring. Again, combined with the drill down to get down to that one add event and seeing those DLLs added on that host outside of a change window. So in summary, LogRhythm's target host monitoring capabilities provide you extensive visibility across your most sensitive hosts, so that if they're breached, if changes occur outside authorized windows, or there are other compliance issues that you should be aware of, you have the required visibility and the analysis with AI Engine to detect them and to respond appropriately. LogRhythm includes extremely powerful reporting capabilities, made more powerful via our LogRhythm Labs team. This team of experts, has deep experience in compliance regulations, and they research these regulations. They translate that expertise and that knowledge into knowledge modules. So that essentially what you have is almost an expert in a box. And this is really nowhere more visible than in reports, because for compliance, in many cases, reporting is a big part of the requirement. Being able to produce a report that provides various activity that maps directly to specific compliance requirements. So within LogRhythm, you have the ability to run reports that are provided via a knowledge module, but you can also create your own reports. You can create report templates, where a template controls what fields you want in the report itself. What information should be included from a detail to a summary level, in what order, in what sorting. Do you want a top X list in that report? So you can control exactly how the information is going to be presented and displayed. You then have the ability to create a report that uses that template and define very specific criteria around what's actually included in the report itself. So you have really complete control over both the presentation of the information as well as what's actually included in the report from a content standpoint. And of course, you can take those a number of reports and roll them into a package. An example of that is our LogRhythm PCI report package, which is provided as part of our PCI compliance module. Another example would be a SOX report package provided as part of our SOX compliance module. Reports can be scheduled to run on a periodic basis. Let's open the scheduler up here real quick. And I've got a couple of report jobs. Let's just open this one up, where I can run a specific package. Let's say I want to run SOX and PCI. I can distribute those reports to various users within my enterprise, and I can run them on a weekly basis, daily basis at a specific time. I can choose the time zone I want to represent the data in, and I can also just export those reports to a secure location and just email individuals a link to where that report resides versus clogging up their inbox. So I have a lot of flexibility around scheduling reports. That's very helpful from a compliance standpoint, because often you want to run your compliance reports daily, some weekly, and some monthly, and just know that they're being saved out to the right place reliably so that you can then review them when appropriate. And let's go take a look at what some reports look like. So I've run the PCI reporting package, and here are the collection of PCI reports. There's about, I think, 30 different reports here that we've got. And here I've got top targeted host report. And I can see on this report the name of the report as well as the specific requirements of PCI that are met, which is nice. And then here I have the data to review. Another example, malware detected report. Unfortunately, this is a big report, which would not be a would not be ideal to see within your environment. But here I can see I have a report that lists all the malware detected by host. So I think that should give you a flavor of how reports look within LogRhythm, and really the almost profound flexibility you have in terms of creating exactly what you want, how you want it, but also how you can just put to work very quickly, very easily, the reports that our LogRhythm Labs team provides and keeps current in support of meeting your compliance requirements. Another unique capability of LogRhythm is our deep Active Directory integration. So not only can you log in with your AD credentials, but we also provide synchronization of one or more Active Directory domains, leveraging persisted credentials where appropriate to cross trust boundaries. We also provide very powerful capabilities around scanning AD networks for Windows hosts on almost a continuous basis to find new hosts in your environment very quickly, very easily, and adding them to LogRhythm and batch. And we also allow you to search and filter based upon AD group membership. Let's jump in and look at one of the tools we have called Active Directory Group Browser. So if you have selected to synchronize AD information to LogRhythm, this tool will be available and be populated, and it'll show you all the groups within those domains you have synchronized. And the nice thing with this tool is that as I choose a group, down below I see the group members. So down below here I see the specifically assigned members of that group, which could be users or other groups. But to the right I see the effective group users. So that's the effective users of that group based upon group to group assignment. Something else I can do, which is really nice, is, let's say, here's my domain admins group. I got a number of different user accounts in here. I could choose that group, right click, and actually launch a search from right there. And here I've launched a search where I am going to look for activity for any user in the domain admins AD group. So I can use this browser to actually, see the groups in my environment, see the users who are part of those groups, and then search for activity on those groups. In this case, I see nothing, for that particular group. So not a great example, but I think probably gives you the general idea. Something else you can do with Active Directory groups is add them to lists. So an example here, let's create a new list, and we'll create a user list. And I'm going to call this, privileged AD groups list. And I'm going to add AD groups. And I'm going to go in and I'm going to search for all my admin groups. There's my enterprise admins, my schema admins, administrators, domain admins, DNS admins. Let's add all those. So now I've added all those AD groups to this list. I can save that. Now, I need to give that a name. Privileged AD groups. So now I've got a list of those groups all in one place that I can maintain. And I can use that list everywhere. I can use it in a search, for example, or an AI engine rule, or an alarm rule. So here in search, I can come in and I can search for activity for users. And I can choose that group that I just created. And let's go look at the properties again here, and you'll see that these are the groups that I just added to that list. Now I'm searching by that list of AD groups, and when I hit next and run, what will happen in the background is that LogRhythm will resolve all the members in those groups and then provide me results for activity for any of the users in those groups based upon their group membership and then those groups assigned to that list. So very, very powerful capabilities when it comes to leveraging Active Directory to find results within LogRhythm, or to apply AD group membership within various criteria when you're analyzing activity. So now you know how LogRhythm SIEM 2.0 Security Intelligence Platform can help you defend, detect, and respond to advanced cybersecurity threats, as well as help you automate and assure your compliance requirements, and help optimize and provide intelligence around your IT operations in general. If you would like more information on LogRhythm, please contact us at info@logrhythm.com or call us at one of the phone numbers listed on this slide. Thank you.